Okay, today we are starting chapter 2 in religion, and it's going to be on the Bible, God's plan for salvation. We have our study guide sheets, our reading guides. I have one that is online in Google Classroom. We have the paper copies here in school. So only fill in the Google Classroom one if you are going to be staying home for a long period of time. If you're going to be coming back to school after you've been sick for a day or two, you can fill in the one at school. If you are gone today and listening to this lesson, print this one out at home and you can fill it in along with the lesson. If you're going to be home for an extended time, if you're in quarantine, then you can fill in the Google Doc and submit the Google Doc to me. But if you are just going to be gone for the day because we have a cold, just print it out or wait till tomorrow and you'll get the paper copy I have for you back at school. All right, so we are on page 24 in our book. So let's open up our books to page 24. So open up your book to page 24. Normally I have us take turns doing our reading, but when I am recording, the microphone picks up the voices up front a lot easier than in the back. So I'm just going to do the reading when it's recording time. I will only be recording one religion class a day. So today I'm recording your class. Tomorrow I'll record the other class. So we'll be able to take our turns with the readings tomorrow. All right, so on page 24. Are you looking forward to learning how to drive? I know Mateo just got his license. Rosa has her permit and she's taking her test this fall. Gianna's taking her driver's ed class in the spring. And you guys aren't that much younger than Gianna. She's only 2 years older than you. 3 years older than you. So she's going to be 15 this spring. So she's 14 right now. So you guys are getting close to it. You're only a few years away from taking that driver's class. Driving is a lot of fun, but it requires learning new physical and mental skills, such as following directions to get from one place to another. Most people use printed maps or get driving directions on a GPS unit or a smartphone. However you do it, you need to know two things for sure: your starting address and the address of your destination. So you need to know where you're starting from and how to get to where you want to go. Without knowing both, you can spend hours driving in circles. Through sacred scripture and sacred tradition, God has given us a roadmap with directions for our life. If we follow God's roadmap, at the end of our life, we will reach the destination He has prepared for us since the beginning of time: eternal union with Him in heaven. We must study the Bible to learn how God has revealed Himself and His plan for our salvation. By reading the Bible, we will learn about the people and events through which God reveals Himself and His saving actions. We call this pattern of events salvation history. To plan a trip across the entire United States, you will probably look at a big map of the whole country. In a similar way, this chapter looks at salvation history through the whole Bible so that you can understand the big picture of God's saving plan. And just like a long road trip can be broken into stages, we will break salvation history into stages. The 6 stages found in the Old Testament, followed by 2 stages followed in the New Testament. Later chapters will explore these stages of salvation history in greater detail. So we're just going to be touching on these stories right now. And just like when I drive to Chicago to see Mr. Gambino's family, we always stop in Toma. That's our halfway point. That's one stage is getting to Toma. The second stage is getting to Chicago. So on those longer road trips, you break it into parts. You don't drive straight through. You have to stop to get gas, maybe use the restroom, get some food. Okay. Same thing in the Bible. There are stopping points. So we're going to be going through those different stages, and you'll see how they're kind of connected together as we go through. So let's look at what we have up here. Stage 1 is Primeval History, and Stage 2 is the Patriarchs. So, and I have a typo. I capitalized an H and chosen by mistake. It happens. So if we look at what we are working on today, we're working on the Stage 1 and the Stage 2. We haven't started reading them yet, so there's nothing to fill in yet on your reading guide, but that is coming. So we need to pay attention to when we hear about primeval, creation, sin, and covenant. Those are the words that we want to match with their definitions. So as we're reading about primeval, creation, sin, and covenant, pay attention because you're going to want to fill in on your reading guide. So page 26, Stage 1, Primeval History. The first stage of salvation history is sometimes called primeval history. Primeval means that the events happened before recorded history. Examples of primeval history in Scripture include the accounts of Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel, Noah and the flood, and the Tower of Babel. You can read these accounts in the first 11 chapters of the book of Genesis. From these scripture accounts, we can learn some very important things. God created everything that exists, and everything He created is good. God created each and every one of you. We were all made in God's image. We are all good. Do not let anybody else tell you anything different. Every single human being is unique and special. And that is important for us to remember. You are unique and special, just like everyone else is. You don't want to be brought down, told you are less than. Don't do that to someone else. 2, God intended that all creatures live together in peace and harmony. In the Garden of Eden, everyone got along. You did not need to be scared of the tigers jumping out and eating you. Everybody lived in harmony. People, animals, the weather, everything was in harmony. 3, God created human beings to have a special relationship with Him. He gave human beings the responsibility of caring for creation. The sin of our first parents, Adam and Eve, damaged their relationship with God, with each other, and with all creation. Without God's help, sin leads to death and destruction. So without God there is a lot of death and destruction that happens. This period of salvation history starts with human beings living in perfect harmony with God, but it ends with our separation from God and eternal happiness, all because of sin. Because of that original sin, Adam and Eve, had to leave the Garden of Eden. We no longer are living in that harmonious place. Now things are in a discord. There's the weather, people get sick, people die, the animals don't get along. Okay, so there isn't that harmony anymore because of sin. So we talked about several of those words. Ooh, there should be 3 of these are on there. So you should have answered what primeval is, creation, and sin. So let's find out about covenant now. Stage 2, the patriarchs. The second stage of salvation history is the period of the patriarchs, told in chapters 12 to 50 of the book of Genesis. In this stage, God begins the process of repairing our damaged relationship with Him. He forms a special relationship with a chosen people by making a special promise called a covenant with a man named Abraham and his wife Sarah. God promises that their descendants will be numerous and that they will inherit a promised land. I will give you many descendants, and they will become a great nation. I will bless you and make your name famous so that you will be a blessing. Genesis chapter 12, verse 2. Does anybody know what descendant Abraham and Sarah have? Who did they have? Who knows that Bible story? Can you remember, Will? Nick? Nick? Can you remember?
Aren't they the one that were like 100 when they had their kid?
What kid did they have? That's the question.
No, wasn't that? Who was the question? Mike? No, it wasn't Mike. Sorry.
You are closer with the first one.
I don't know.
Landon? Peyton?
David?
No.
Joseph?
No. Kira?
Is it Isaac?
It is Isaac.
Oh!
Starts with that vowel. Starts with the vowel. So Abraham and Sarah had Isaac. And he was a very special son. And we will learn a little bit about him, I believe. Actually, in future chapters, you will learn about Isaac and how he, Abraham is the father of our faith. Because from him comes Isaac, and all the way down the line, we come to David. Then farther down the line, we come to Jesus. So we're at the very top of our ancestry of the Christian faith. So we talked about covenant. So you should have all four of those words. You should have them matched up with their definitions. And if you weren't sure tonight, go back and read it again. Okay. It is time for us to close with religion. Let's just do a quick summary of what we read. The first stage of salvation history is primeval history or prehistory, which teaches some basic truths about the world and all that is in it, human beings and their relationship with God, and the tragedy of sin in the world. Primeval history teaches that God created all that exists and that is good, that all of God's creatures are created to live in peace and harmony, and that without God's help, sin leads to death of our relationship to God, to one another, and to all of creation. The second stage, we are listening, please. The second stage of salvation history is the patriarchs. In this stage, God forms a covenant with his chosen people, Israel, and begins the process of repairing our damaged relationship with God. With that, we are going to stop our video, and you can put your religion away.